there has to be that amount of respect where you can voice your disagreement without it being unpleasant. If you can have that, and you want disagreements, you want disagreements on multiple fronts, especially from your co-founders. If you have a hierarchy and if you say among the co-founders and say initial parts of the company, and you say no, this is the hierarchy, A says this, so that is right. I don't think that's the way to do it, especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur when you have no experience. Maybe 10 years from now, if you have to co-found a company again with people who have much more energy, but maybe less experience, maybe that would work. But when you're starting off a company as equals, and by equals I mean none of you know nothing. What hierarchy would you have? You just have to get people who think differently together and hope something works.
And you didn't have a technical mentor, but you went out and found one.
We found one later. But the problem is that again in a technology company, the deeper you go, the more specialized it becomes. So it's very difficult to find a mentor who's exactly in your sweet spot, especially if you're doing
and if something doesn't work and you move that sweet spot, now suddenly that mentor is useless. Yeah. And that mentor, if he is super specialist in that area, will be perhaps even more wedded to that approach.
Absolutely. I think when I say technical mentor, it could be anybody with a curious mind. So, for example, Mukesh challenges us a lot on technology nowadays. So, a curious mind with some...
Yeah, he's a chartered accountant who's our chief investment officer. He knows nothing about it now.
A complete finance person, but now when you have a chat, he's like, could you do it in that way? So, curious mind with an interest can sometimes be more useful than a lot of knowledge but a lack of curiosity.
So echoing green, you were saying, is one of those lifelines that you got in the early days. That's what kept you going. What are some of the other lows and what are some of the chance things that came through?
So echoing green was one, and after that was Pilgrim. Pilgrim was absolutely crucial from converting our sort of a place where there's anarchy.
I didn't pay him to say this, but
converting where there's anarchy to some sort of systems. And that process is still going on. We're still getting our systems in place. But I think that was catalyzed by Bilgo. I still remember the due diligence that happened on us. It was a 4-hour-long due diligence. At the end of the call, I stood up and I said, I don't know. I don't know what you're asking, I have no clue. And just walked out of the room. And after that, I told Yogi, I think we screwed up, man. There's no कोई chance नहीं है. इतना बुरा due diligence के बाद अगर कोई पैसा देता है तो हाथ हो गई. But I think the team at Wilgrow, I don't know what they saw, but you did fund us.
It's honesty of purpose and it's our perseverance. But, that honesty of purpose, I think, is something that you don't find too often. That's probably what we...
Maybe, because we didn't know what we were talking about.
And you were honest about that, and that's what's good.
Yeah, we were honest about it. That's true.
So, and then you went into other products after...
So, the second product came as... so, the team had hit a brick wall. We had no clue what we were doing. And the problem is, when you face a brick wall and you don't know what to do, you start doubting yourself. And that doubting creates negativity and you begin to doubt yourself further and you become even less productive. So it's a cycle you can't break out of. Our second product was essentially got the team out of that downward spiral where you have a lot of negativity, you doubt yourself, you say that we have made these many mistakes. Maybe we just continue to make mistakes, maybe we are not good enough. And that is a state, I think, which every entrepreneur goes through at some point. Some will tell you, some won't. Some will face it with a product, some will face it with a market, somebody will face it with working capital. But that cycle of self-doubt, if that is seeded in a startup, that is probably the worst thing you can happen. You can live without money, You can live without a team, you can't live without hope and optimism. You can't do that.
And tell us about the product. How long will it take you to develop?
A year.
I think you have a little. Do you want to demo it?
Sure. So what we did is there's a very small market in India of urine analysis machines. A total market of 1,500 machines sold in 1 year. So it actually doesn't, from if you look at it from a market perspective, it's a very small market, which is something which all of our mentors had asked. What are you guys doing? This is such a small market. And so we said, let's do it differently. And we took a mobile phone, we used the camera, the smartphone, the processing power, and paper diagnostics to change color when you dip them in urine. And we wrote an algorithm which could detect concentrations of chemicals in urine with the accuracy of a laboratory. You have paper strips which look like this. These are small color pads. When you dip them in a particular solution, it could be urine, it could be water. They change color depending on the concentrations of chemicals out there. And we built this product for a very small segment of early stage diabetic nephropathy. When you have diabetes, your kidneys start failing. If you detect it early, it's 100% reversible with only medication. The longer it gets, the more damaged the kidney becomes, till at a point the only option you have is dialysis or renal transplant. Both of which are extremely expensive. Kidneys are rare to find, and dialysis is painful, expensive, and not a permanent solution. So we built this solution, this product targeted at urine analysis and detecting early stage diabetic nephropathy. And the whole idea was to build something which is disruptive, so it need not be technically complex. So one of the things was there has to be a need for it, something which is not catered to. And microalbuminuria, early stage diabetic nephropathy is something which is not catered to in India at all. There are probably 2 machines and both of them are really expensive. And so the penetration is very low. So we built this product which is targeting that particular segment, and we got immediate results. We managed to penetrate 10% of the diabetologist market in India in a span of a year. We sold close to 1,000 instruments in a year when the entire market sold 1,500. Of course, our pricing was lower, so revenue-wise, number would be lower, but we managed to get a lot of leverage both in terms of revenue and market share. But most importantly, it got the confidence of the team back, which is more important than any sort of revenue that we could have earned. The thing that you can ship products, people are using them, paying you for it, is something which really helped the team.
You got a third product up.
Then we got a third product up. So once you start doing it, it kind of becomes an addiction. And so we were called by the Indian Council of Medical Research, and we were told, why don't you build a non-invasive glucose sensor? There are very few companies who work in the non-invasive sensor space. We were one of them. And we were already facing such huge problems with hemoglobin. We told them, glucose not going to work, reason is A, B, C, D, E. These are the unresolved issues. You have to resolve these issues. We're not saying it's impossible, but it won't happen in the next 5 years. Give us 10 years with nothing else to do, give us that much funding, maybe yes. But of course that is impractical and it won't happen. And so we said, okay, what do you want? Why do you want a non-invasive glucose sensor? So they said, we want to screen people for diabetes. Right now 90% of the glucometers are imported. And the government ends up paying 10 to 15 rupees per test. So the then Health Minister, Ghulam Nabi Azad, he had promised diabetes screening for the entire country using an indigenous strip. So we said, okay, we will develop for you an invasive glucometer in 3 months. And they were running short on time. So they had reached a point where they didn't have time on their hands. We stepped in and we built it in 3 months. And they validated it, tested it, then we started the process of scaling.